And we should be live any moment. And there we go. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris, and this is my channel, Bar911970. As always, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. And we're going to change gears a little bit because it was something I was thinking about for some reason early this morning, and I wanted to share this with you. And today is the 7th of April, 2017. It is approximately 12:50 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I wanted to first give a quick shout out to one of my subscribers. His name is Nicholas Peter. So welcome. And if he has a YouTube channel, you could post your link. So if you want to check it out, if he makes videos, click on his link and go see what he creates. So I want to talk about something that most people may think is just a sweet and innocent thing that people are using more and more these days. And that's what they call emoticons, which if you're not familiar with them, like you could see on the image of the screen, there's like happy faces and, lumps of poo and all these different little images that people use instead of words. Now, again, people might think, oh, why are you talking about this? This is just something innocent. But if you think about things like this, anything that's trending tends to have a reason and a purpose behind it. Now, especially with younger generations, they're getting to the point where they don't know how to operate equipment like we used to. Like, go give a child a rotary phone and they'll have no idea what it is. Give them a VCR, they probably wouldn't know how to work it. Have them write a story on a piece of paper with a pen and paper. Within probably 30 seconds, their arms would probably feel like they want to fall off, and they don't really know how to write anymore. One of the things about being a karaoke DJ is people have to sign, the songs that they want. And their handwriting is atrocious at this point because people are used to texting and using cell phones and computers all the time. So if you think about with something like emoticons, it's a way to express yourself without having to say words. And I was thinking about this morning. What if we ever get to the point where people start losing their ability to communicate and they just, instead of talking to each other, they just hold up some image of some emoticon? Now, do you think that's going to help make people raise their intelligence or lower it by something that most people will think is no big deal? And that's why we have to be careful, because if you understand or understand anything about inventions and the bettering of society with all these tools, they're making us dumber. They're making us more reliant on technology instead of doing things for ourselves. I mean, instead of people looking at maps, we now just type things into a GPS. Instead of writing and building up our strength in our hands, we just type things. Instead of going outside and experiencing nature, we go on computers all day. We don't get sunlight anymore, which is full of vitamin D and other positive energies. But we're getting what's called the false light, which is whatever light is in your room, especially a computer light. You want to have something that hurts your eyes. Stare at a computer for a long time and watch how much your eyes start to hurt. And we're losing the ability to connect with one another. Because now, even if you want to date somebody, the old way is you go out to bars, you go out to clubs, or you go out to different places and you actually interact with people and meet them and communicate with them. Now people just go on, like, what is it, Tumblr or other accounts like that and just send messages on computers. And we're losing that connection. So things like emoticons, you think are just something that's just, it's an innocent thing. It's like, oh, why touch that? It's just cute little images. But what it's doing is it's replacing words. And that's why when you see something, for example, like Twitter, they make sure you only have a certain amount of characters that you can type. So it reduces your ability to learn how to communicate, and you start abbreviating things. And what that does is it decreases your vocabulary. When we get to the point that we're replacing words with pictures, eventually, if it continues, and again, it's something that most people think is just sweet and innocent and no big deal, if we get to the point where our children now no longer communicate and they just show pictures to demonstrate whatever meaning they want to have, that's not really going to help expand people's brains, because the brain is like any other muscle. If you use it, you strengthen it. If you don't use it, it starts to atrophy. And when you get people, especially children, into something that looks like it's fun and it's a game and it's cute, because the emoticons, as you can see, they make them look all cute, it's replacing communication. And that's why you see people today. I mean, one of the biggest things I've seen is a transformation of being a DJ. I've been a karaoke DJ since roughly around 1999. I've been around it much longer, but I started doing it on my own and working for other people in the beginning since 1999. And in the beginning, people were always communicating with each other. They were always having fun. They were always interacting. Nobody was on their cell phones. Because especially at that time, there were rarely any of them that did anything but actually make phone calls. And nowadays, I mean, I've thrown parties where the teenagers will be sitting at tables, and no matter what music you play, they're too busy texting. And there was one time that a bunch of these teenagers were actually texting one another at the table they were sitting at. So what does this do to society? Well, you ever notice people don't trust each other anymore? I mean, people used to have more courtesy and friendship. You'd walk outside, you'd be like, hey, neighbor, and you'd have block parties, and you'd communicate. Now people are just looking over their shoulders, being afraid to talk to each other, wondering if that person's going to kidnap my child or they're going to stab me. And a lot of times it's because of the fact that we're no longer communicating correctly. So we start getting this fear-based surrounding us. So something as simple as an emoticon, which may seem harmless and may seem like no big deal and something that most people would overlook, if you see it for what it could potentially do. Now, I'm not saying the person that created these is some evil person trying to, control the world. But even if that's not the case, the fact is we're having, especially our youth, using images instead of words, using computers instead of interacting with one another. And it's causing a generation that really does not know what's going on, who is really going to be easily influenced. Because if you start lacking the ability to research, the ability to communicate, the ability to surround yourself with like-minded people, you're going to be very susceptible to others influencing you. Because it's the tribe mentality. And when you don't have the ability to speak for yourself, you'll tend to be very drawn inward. You'll be very quiet. You ever notice most of the kids in this generation, of course, there's exceptions to every rule, but a lot of these children in this generation are very shy, very timid, unless they're on their computers. And I see parties like my cousin, she's roughly around 22, and she has all her friends over for parties, and she invites all the family, so we all go. So the average people there are around 18 to 25, and most of the time they're on their cell phones. When I was a kid, and when I was a teenager, and when I was a young adult, when we went out, we didn't bring our phones. What do we need our phones for? Unless we were going to enter somebody's phone number in, we were out trying to pick up girls, to have a good time, to interact with people, to make friends. And people don't do that anymore. So I don't use these emoticons. If I want to make an expression, I communicate it. Now, that doesn't mean I always say the right thing, but at least I'm giving myself the ability to use this brain that we have. And if you know anything about how you can control mass quantities of people, it's to keep them poor, keep them scared, and keep them uneducated. People will say, oh, there's plenty of schools that teach you things. Well, one of the things they don't teach you is how to question things, how to think of alternative viewpoints, how to question authority. They just give you information and have you regurgitate it. And the more and more people research, the more you see that a lot of the stuff that they teach us is at the very least inaccurate or one-sided. And just imagine if one point we get to the point where in school the teachers start using emoticons to teach, and they start using different images. What do you think that's going to do to your child? It's not going to make them more outgoing. It's not going to make them more intellectually stimulating. So I want to make cautions to things that most people may not see as a big deal. And that's a lot of times how they can get situations in to change our direction without us really even thinking about it. It's like, for example, if you look at some of the latest technology videos, a lot of them out there are starting to talk about like robots that you can have in your home that move around by themselves. And one of the biggest things that many of them talk about, because there's several different companies making these at this point, these are real things. They always talk about each one has a camera that you can actually, when you're out of your house, they say, well, through the convenience of your cell phone, connects wirelessly to this robot that's roaming around your house, you can actually see what's going on. Now, that sounds like something convenient, and it is. Because if, for example, you have dogs and cats and you want to see if they're chewing on the furniture or peeing on the rug while you're not home, well, having a mobile camera would be a great way to find out. If somebody was robbing your house and you could get an image of them on the computer video screen, that's a great way to help yourself. But you also have to remember, thanks to the Patriot Act, they can spy on everything that we do. So now they'll have a camera view of your house in real time, knowing when you're not home, because there are patterns. There's a thing called predictive programming, where if you let's say every Wednesday between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., you're monitoring your robot, your cool new invention, monitoring your home from work or wherever you are, well, they know eventually through probability that the future of next Wednesday, the probability of you not being home is very great. So if somebody wanted to rob your house, there you go. So a lot of times, things that seem convenient, like microchips, they're always talking about, well, if you implant them in your dog or cat, if they get lost, we can track them. That's a great thing, right? Well, they can put it in people like for example, somebody has Alzheimer's. Well, if we install this chip on them or in them, if they ever get lost and wander away, you could find them. That's convenient. But also they can track you. With your credit cards now, a lot of new credit cards have a little microchip in them, and you can usually tell because there'll be a little bit of a square indent. Now, in my opinion, I don't have any of these because I only have one credit card, and that's a bank card from my credit union. I don't have any other credit cards. I tell people all the time, cut up your credit cards. But if they renewed and got this new program where there was that little microchip, what I would do is take a nail to it and punch a hole through it so it's no longer effective, because then they're tracking everything that you do. And it's one of the reasons why they want a cashless society. Because if you have $1,000 in your pocket right now and you get in your car without a GPS, it's not a smart car. So let's say you have a 75 Pinto. I don't think they still work anymore, but let's just say you have one. So there's no GPS, there's no computer chips tracking where you're going. You leave your cell phone at home. You take that $1,000 and you go to a place or a person and you make a purchase. Well, it'll be very difficult for them to know what that is and what you've done. But if you have the latest cell phone, the latest GPS, the smart cars that can track you, using a credit card with a computer chip, go into a retail store and swipe it, or use Apple Pay or Bill Pay or Google Pay or any of these pay programs on your computer, on your cell phone, because it's convenient. They know exactly where you are, what you're purchasing, how much money you have. They use convenience as a way to make you not think about it and only think from a certain point of view. Now, some people will say, oh, that's just being paranoid. Well, all I have to say is look at your politicians wherever you are in your world. Are these people caring, loving, and doing everything for your best interest? Are you full of wealth and security and happiness because of your government wherever you are? If you are, congratulations. But the majority of people, since the majority of people on the planet are poor, that would suggest that their leaders are failing them. Their representatives, the ones that are supposed to represent us. So these little simple things like an emoticon may seem sweet and innocent, may seem convenient, may seem fun, but it's to dumb you down. And they're not using these for people of my age. And I am sure that most people my age, I'm 46, I'll be 47 at the end of this year. I'm sure not many people my age are using these, at least on a regular basis. But your children are. Your grandchildren are. And they're losing the ability to communicate. And they're becoming more and more distant because of technology. All these supposed convenient things. Well, what if there's an alternative motive? Or what if that is the side effect of technology, where we separate from each other and we don't trust each other anymore, where friends send an electronic high five instead of meeting in person and hugging each other because physical touch is actually good for you? They've actually done studies that children that were brought up in families where there wasn't, much love in the form of hugs and affection, and I'm not talking perverted stuff, I'm talking about genuine, hugging your child, that they tend to grow up with more crime, of a criminal background. So there is a benefit to physical touch, of course, like I said, respectful and proper. But they don't want that. They want you to have, oh, look, this emoticon, very cute. You could say a whole paragraph with just one picture. And you think that's just something sweet and innocent, something to not pay attention to, something that's not a cause for concern, until one day children are so used to just using images that they don't know how to really communicate anymore. And that's why I tell people to think in a different way, to see things on a deeper level. And they use your children to program them. Get them while they're young, because you can't teach old dogs new tricks. And that's why when we are all young, we fall for all their lies and all their propaganda and all their garbage. And it's not until, for the most part, when we get older and wiser, because experience creates wisdom. Anybody can say they're smart. When you say you're smart, that means that you are able to regurgitate all the stuff that they told you probably better than most. That's what smart really is. Being wise is a person that gained their knowledge through experience. There is a difference. I would rather be wise than smart. But again, if we just see some of these things as just cute little conveniences, oh, they're no big deal, oh, you're making it into something bigger than it is, that is how they slip these things through the cracks. Just look at some of these inventions. Look at these home security systems now, where now they say out of convenience, you can check it through your house. Well, if somebody steals your phone, or anyone in the government, as we could see, this is not a conspiracy theory. 5 years ago when I was talking about this stuff, people, my lovely trolls, would always say you're a crazy paranoid conspiracy theorist. Well, they're not saying it on that anymore, but they'll always find something new. But the government now has live camera access to your home, so they can see what's in your home, they can see what you're doing in your home, and when you're not home. Why make it easier for them? That's why I am broadcasting this from my laptop. It has a built-in camera. I have it taped and covered. You think I want to make things easier for them? I try as much as I can to purchase things with cash. I don't have debt as far as credit cards. Like I said earlier, the only card I have is a debit card from my federal credit union. I don't have a regular bank account because I'm not going to help feed the system. Now, of course, you need to have currency to survive in this world. As long as we allow governments throughout the world to basically enslave us, we have to play by their rules. you can't get food most of the time on your good looks alone. So in this society that we choose to continue to stay in, if you want to buy food, you tend to need fiat currency, which means you have to work or earn a living or do criminal activity to be able to get it and acquire it. Now, I am not going to go steal from people. I'm not going to go rob somebody's house. And that's why even some of my trolls who make their fake accounts every day may have a problem with the fact that I make orgone pyramids or sell organic products or even put up a Patreon account. But it's to help pay for bills in this society because that's the world we live in. And if they have a better way and they're not using cash or whatever euro or whatever fiat currency they have, if they're not using it, please make a video showing what they're doing to avoid the situation that we're in. It's because we choose to not see it. So as usual, I could talk about one topic and go all over the place, but if you think about it, it is relative. So be careful about these things. What seems like something that is sweet and innocent and no big deal, if you really see it for what it is, it's to make your children use pictures to communicate instead of words, to use their cell phones to send images instead of going to each other's homes or places where they can gather and communicate with each other. That is going to make our younger generations scareder and scareder. Because how do you build trust? Trust has to be earned. And if people are in their homes playing video games, because even as a child, I was in the video game generation. Generation X, we were called. But at least when we wanted to play video games, our friends came over, or we went over their houses. So we weren't going out as much, but we were still interacting with each other. And when gas was under 99 cents a gallon, which wasn't that long ago, actually it is 25 years at this point, we would get in our car and just drive. There were times where I live in New York, we'd drive out to other states just because we wanted to see what was out there. Nobody really does that anymore. You can't afford to, and most people are afraid. Just imagine if somebody's GPS stopped working. How would they ever get home? They wouldn't know how to read a map. Do you think they're going to get out of their car and go to somebody on the street and ask for directions? Try and use your emoticons then. See how well they work for you. So, is something like an emoticon going to start World War III? No. Is it going to make your child or you or anybody that uses it all of a sudden go to hell and burn for all eternity? I would hope not, but most likely no. But if you see it from more than just one perspective, and this is one of the things I talk about all the time, and that's why I say be careful about like CNN and other news organizations and even politicians. They will give you a point of view, and it can even make sense. But in this world, there is always alternative points of views. It's all a matter of your perception. And if you only see things in one way, you are eliminating 99.9999% of what's out there in this world. That's why I tell people to question things. Look deeper into the meaning behind it, because you have to think like a criminal. The normal person will see an emoticon and say, oh, it's no big deal. It's just a happy image. It's just a little picture I can use instead of having to type extra words. But if you could see what it could also be used for from an evil perspective, you could say, oh, we can put these cute little things on images. We can get people to start replacing words with images. They'll lack the ability to communicate with one another, which will create more distance, which will create more distrust, which creates more fear, which means we can control them easier. Now, obviously, that's not something that happens overnight, because if it happened overnight, people would pay attention. That's why you notice these things, they slowly implement them a little bit at a time and make them either convenient or fun. Because most people won't pay attention to something that they view as harmless, and they won't look at it into a deeper meaning. And when somebody does, there'll always be somebody that comes along to say, oh, crazy conspiracy theorist. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time to listen. I would love to hear your thoughts and your opinions. If you've never seen any of my videos before, my channel is all about thinking for yourself, seeing things from alternative viewpoints, and questioning things. So my opinion, and this is my opinion, get out of banks, get a credit union, either federal or local, Get out of debt, get rid of your credit cards. If you're on any form of welfare, try and get yourself out of it, because it's meant to enslave you, to keep you poor and just enough to get by, dependent on governments. Get yourself some physical gold and silver. Pay attention to things. See things from alternative perspectives, and know there is always more than just one way. If somebody tells you there's only one way to go, that somebody is most likely trying to program you. So think for yourself. And remember, don't forget to have your trolls spayed or neutered. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.